My name is Eudora Blythe. I am 58 years old. I taught second grade for 30 years. I live in a small town outside Savannah. I am a proud black woman. I have 2 grown children and 1 grandchild. My husband Leroy and I have been married for 32 years. I am retired now. Leroy collects his small retirement check every month. We argue about the light bill and the garden, and who forgot to call Mama at the nursing home. We fight in little ways. We keep secrets in quiet ways. Before I begin, if you like stories that make you feel and think, please subscribe to this channel, like this video, and turn on notifications so you do not miss the next chapter. Tell me in the comments where you are watching from so I know who is with me. Your support means I can keep telling these true feeling stories. I never imagined the shampoo would be the thing that broke everything open. It sounds silly when I say it aloud. Shampoo is for cleaning hair. It is small and ordinary. But ordinary things carry weight when you have worn a life with someone for more than 3 decades. For weeks I had been restless. Leroy had a way of coming home late and smiling like nothing had happened. He would kiss my forehead in the kitchen and then pull the paper around his coffee like it kept some secret. He started coming home smelling like some new aftershave I did not recognize. He would say he had stopped by a friend, or that the bus route took longer, or that work called. He always had a reason that fit like a patch over a hole. Our daughter Shanice moved nights away to Atlanta for a job and calls less. Our son Malik lives 2 towns over. I tell myself that people change. I tell myself that marriage shifts like the weather. But there were nights I lay awake listening to the house breathe and wondering if Leroy still loved the woman he promised to hold when the doctor called our names 40 years ago. The day it happened I had run out of my shampoo. Mine was the big pink bottle I liked because it smelled like citrus and felt soft on my hands. Leroy keeps a plain blue bottle in our shower. He says his is cheaper. He says his lasts longer. I grabbed his bottle because I did not want to wake him and go to the store at night. I did not think about what a bottle could hide. When I unscrewed the blue cap, something moved inside the neck. I thought it was just air. But then the bottle slipped and a small rectangle fell into my palm and landed on the shower tile. At first I thought it was a shampoo label or a scrap of cardboard. My fingers were so wet I had to squeeze the water out to keep it from slipping away. I opened it with my nails and found a photograph. The paper was glossy and small, like the ones you get from a gas station photo machine. There he was, my Leroy, smiling wide, arm around a woman I had never seen. She had hair that fell past her shoulders and wore bright red lipstick. They were standing close like they had secrets between them. The background looked like the neon of a motel sign, or maybe the lights of a city bar. My heart beat so hard I thought it would tear out. I do not know how long I stood there with the photograph wet between my fingers. Water ran down my arms. The steam made the bathroom fuzzy like a memory. I felt like I was watching my life through a window that had been suddenly fogged. The photograph had something else tucked behind it. A receipt. A handwritten note. At first I could not tell. My hands shook. When I straightened up, the hair on Leroy's head brushed the top of my forehead, but he was not home. He always comes home with his key turning at the same time my tea is cooling. He had gone out for errands, he said, but he was supposed to be back in an hour. The clock on the stove said it was 4 in the afternoon. The house smelled like faint lemon from my cleaner and something else I could not name, like perfume you find on a coat someone forgot to hang up. I wrapped the photograph in a washcloth and put it in my pocket. I rinsed my hair with the blue shampoo to not waste a drop and stepped out to the living room. Leroy's slippers were where he left them by the chair. His glasses lay on the table next to a crossword puzzle half finished. On the mantel sat the small framed graduation photo of our son Malik and a chipped vase that had belonged to my mama. The house looked the same, but the photograph felt like a new weight inside my body. I sat down and stared at the phone. I wanted to call him. I wanted to call Shanice or Malik or someone to tell them that the picture had fallen into my hands like a thrown stone. My fingers found the TV remote instead. I clicked through a show about old houses, anything to keep my eyes busy. My thoughts kept going back to the woman in the picture and to the neon lights. I tried to tell myself it was nothing. Maybe this woman was a distant cousin. Maybe it was a work thing. Maybe there was some explanation that would tuck the paper back into ordinary life. I put the washcloth on the table and opened the photograph again. The woman's eyes in the photo were closed just so. Leroy's hand rested on the small of her back. There was laughter in his smile and something else I had not seen on him in a long time. A loose ease that had gone missing from our kitchen conversations. I thought of all the small betrayals that had become our life. The times he had forgotten to pick up my prescription. The nights he fell asleep on the couch watching reruns and did not hear me cry. The little cuts that do not bleed but still leave a line. I also thought of the things that made us us. The way he whistled when he cut the grass. The time he drove 3 hours to pick up my mother from the doctor when she was sick. The way his hands still smelled of diesel from the old bus. I did not want to be the woman who threw away 32 years for a single photograph. And yet the photograph felt like proof that something had moved while I was sleeping. I sat very still and listened. The house has its own sounds. The refrigerator hummed. The wind made a slow knocking at the back door. I heard a car pull into the driveway and the crunch of gravel under tires. My heart lifted and then fell. Leroy's key jingled on the steps. I could hear him talking to someone in the yard in a low voice that made the hairs rise on my arm. He came in with a bag from the hardware store and a small paper bag with his lunch. He whistled the old tune he whistles whenever he is in good spirits. I stood up and smoothed my clothes. The photograph was folded in my pocket. I planned to ask him about the picture right away. I planned to be calm. I planned to ask for the truth like a woman who has earned her years. Leroy walked into the living room and smiled in the way he always does when he sees me. But his smile faltered for a second and then came back with something in it I could not read. He said hello and set the bags down. He did not notice the damp line on my sleeve or the small rectangular bulge in my pocket. Before I could find my voice, my phone buzzed on the table. The screen flashed an unknown number with a message that read, "I know what you found." My stomach dropped and my hands went cold. Leroy looked at me then, and for the first time in a long while, I saw something like fear cross his face. I had to decide what to do next. Confront him now and let a lifetime of small lies spill open, or wait and gather my courage like one gathers kindling for a long slow fire. I reached into my pocket and the photograph was warm from my hand. Leroy took a step toward me and said, "Did you just use my shampoo?" And in that exact second the front door opened behind him and a car door slammed outside. Someone called Leroy's name in a voice I did not know. The voice was laughing and close, and it sounded like the woman from the photograph. When that woman's voice called Leroy's name, everything in me froze. The sound came through the open door like a gust of warm air. It did not belong in my home. It did not belong in my hallway. And it surely did not belong wrapped around my husband's name. Leroy stiffened. His shoulders squared the way they do when he is caught doing something he should not be doing but tries to pretend he is not. I saw his hand move toward the doorknob like he wanted to close it before I could see who was behind it. But he was too late. She stepped inside without waiting to be invited. She walked in as if she had been here before. She was younger than me. Maybe mid-30s. Light brown skin. Long straight hair the color of roasted coffee. Gold hoop earrings big enough to catch the light from my window. She held a small purse in one hand and a takeout cup in the other. Her eyes scanned the room and then landed on me. "Oh hey," she said with a smile that did not touch her eyes. I did not know he had company. Company. I almost laughed. Almost. But laughter cannot grow in a place where your heart has been cut open. Leroy stepped between us. "Eudora, this is Crystal. She is from the community center. She was just dropping off something for me." Crystal raised one eyebrow. Community center. That was news to her. Her smile tightened. "Oh right," she said slowly. "The community center." I could have played dumb. I could have pretended I believed them. but the photograph was still warm in my pocket. And my phone still had the message, "I know what you found," glowing on the screen like a cruel reminder. So I said nothing. I simply walked to the sofa and sat down. I had learned long ago that silence is its own kind of weapon. When a woman stays quiet, people start showing who they really are. Crystal glanced around the living room. Her gaze lingered on the picture of my children on the wall. Then her purse buzzed. She clicked her tongue and pulled out a phone with a glitter case. "I told you to meet me outside," she said to Leroy with a soft, scolding voice. I did not expect to come into all this. All this. My home. My life. My 32-year marriage. Leroy inhaled deeply. He looked at me as if trying to read my mood, but I kept my face still. He could not tell if I was furious or frightened or ready to pack a bag. He walked toward Crystal. "Look, let me take care of this and I will call you in a minute." Crystal crossed her arms. "Are you serious?" She tapped her manicured nails on her purse. "You always do this. Act like I do not matter when she is around." She. My fingers curled into my lap. Leroy whispered, "Please just go." But she did not move. She tilted her head at him and said loud enough for me to hear, "Did you tell her or should I?" Leroy's eyes widened. His voice dropped to a warning tone. "Crystal. Not now." A slow fire rose in my chest. I stood up. "Calm. Too calm. Tell me what." Both of them snapped their heads toward me like I had broken a rule neither of them admitted to making. Leroy stepped forward. "Eudora, let me explain." Crystal laughed once. Just one short laugh that cut the room in half. "Oh, he is not going to explain. He never explains. He just sneaks around hoping nobody sees him. Sneaks around." Another blow. I took a breath. But before I could speak, my phone buzzed again. The same unknown number. Another message. "Ask him about Tuesday nights." My hands trembled. Tuesday nights. Leroy always told me he was helping his brother with plumbing work on Tuesdays. I lifted my eyes to him. Tuesday nights. "Where do you go, Leroy?" He swallowed. I could see the pulse in his neck beating fast. "That is nothing," he said. "Just errands. Helping folks." Crystal raised her hand. "Oh, please." He was not helping folks. He was helping himself. A storm built inside me. I did not shout. I did not cry. I simply reached into my pocket, pulled out the folded photograph, and straightened it in my hand. Leroy's face drained of color. Crystal leaned closer and smirked. "So you finally saw it." Finally. A word that meant there was more I had not yet seen. I held the photo up between us. Leroy looked away first. "Tell me who she is," I said. Crystal flinched. "Not me. The woman in the picture." I knew now that Crystal was not the woman in the photo. They looked nothing alike. That meant there were layers to this betrayal. More than one secret. More than one lie. Leroy rubbed the back of his neck. "Eudora, I can explain everything. It is not what you think. It always starts with that line. The line men use when they have no truth left." Crystal sighed. "I am not staying for this." She reached into her purse and slammed something onto the table. A motel key card. Then she said to Leroy, "You told me you were leaving your wife. You said you were tired of pretending." My knees weakened. I grabbed the arm of the sofa to steady myself. Crystal walked to the door, heels clicking sharp against my tile. Before stepping out, she paused and said, "Maybe Tuesday will make more sense to her now." Then she was gone. The house felt too big, too small, too loud, too quiet. I stared at Leroy. He stared at the floor. Finally I said, "Leroy, look at me." He lifted his head. His eyes were wet. Not with guilt, but with panic. "Eudora," he whispered. "You are not supposed to know all this yet. Not supposed to know." The words hit me like a cold wave. My throat tightened. He took a step toward me. Please sit down. You need to hear the truth. All of it. But before he could say another word, my phone buzzed again. The same unknown number. Do not believe him. He is hiding something worse. I stared at the message. My heartbeat grew sharp and painful. Worse than cheating. Worse than motel rooms. Worse than sneaking around Tuesday nights. I felt the room tilt. I looked up slowly at Leroy. What else did you do? He opened his mouth to answer. And that is when someone knocked on our front door with so much force the entire house shook. The knock on the door was so loud it felt like someone hit the wood with the side of their fist. The sound echoed through every corner of the house. Leroy stepped back like he had been caught in a spotlight. His shoulders tightened and his eyes darted to the window. I stood very still. Something in me told me that whatever waited behind that door was bigger than a photograph, bigger than a motel key, bigger than the lies Leroy had already told. Another knock. Harder this time. Leroy whispered under his breath. Not now. Not today. He looked scared. Truly scared. And that frightened me more than anything so far. I walked slowly to the door. Leroy rushed forward and grabbed my arm. Do not open it, Eudora. Please. Not until I explain. I pulled my arm away. Explain what, Leroy? You have been sneaking around. You have motel keys. Women calling your name in my house. And now someone is knocking like they want to break the door down. You explain right now. He ran a hand over his face. Just sit down first. Let me talk. Before I could answer, the knocking came again. This time the person added a voice. Open this door right now. I know you are in there, Leroy. A woman's voice. Strong. Angry. Older. I felt the hairs on my arms rise. Leroy closed his eyes. Oh Lord. I stepped aside and pulled the door open before he could stop me. A woman about my age stood there. Short curls. Dark skin. Sharp eyes. She wore a denim jacket and held a thick manila envelope in her hand. Her jaw was tight, like she had been working up the courage to come here. Her stare cut straight past me and landed on Leroy. So you do live here, she said. Leroy whispered her name under his breath. Lorraine. Lorraine pushed past me and stormed inside like she had every right to be there. We need to talk, she said to him. Right now. I shut the door slowly. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my fingertips. Leroy tried to calm her down. Lorraine, please. Not here. Not in front of my wife. Your wife should have known months ago, Lorraine snapped. She turned toward me. Her expression softened just a little. Maram, I apologize for coming in like this. But I have been trying to get your husband to face the truth, and he refuses to answer my calls. I swallowed hard. What truth? Leroy reached for her arm but Lorraine jerked away. No. You should have told her long before now. Then she handed me the manila envelope. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside were papers. Many papers. Some printed. Some handwritten. Some copied from official forms. The first page caught my eye. It was a bank statement. Not mine. Not ours. Leroy's. But the address on it was not our home address. It listed a small apartment complex in another town. A place I had never heard of. Next was another page. A signed lease. His signature. Tears blurred my vision. I blinked them away. Leroy moved closer. Eudora, let me explain. I can explain everything. You keep saying that but you never actually explain anything, I said. Lorraine pointed to the next document. Keep going. I flipped the page. There it was. A birth certificate. My breath caught in my throat. A boy. Born 14 years ago. Father's name. Leroy Holland Blythe. Mother's name. Lorraine Price. The room went quiet except for the sound of my heartbeat roaring in my ears. I stared at Leroy. He opened his mouth, but no sound came out. Lorraine let out a shaky breath. I tried to handle this privately. I tried to let him do the right thing. But he left us. He helped us for a while, and then he stopped answering his phone. He stopped checking in. He thinks because the boy is getting older he can disappear. But he cannot keep disappearing. Not anymore. My voice came out small and thin. 14 years. Leroy lowered his head. Eudora. Please. I stepped back until the back of my knees hit the sofa. 14 years. The timeline hit me like a brick. 14 years ago was the year my mother fell ill. The year Leroy worked extra hours. The year he hardly came home. The year I had blamed stress for everything that felt strange. The year he had told me we should try counseling because marriage was hard. That was the year. I sank onto the sofa. I could not catch my breath. Lorraine crossed her arms. I did not want to come here. But this man left my boy wondering why his father does not want him. I tried being patient. I tried kindness. I tried silence. None of that worked. And now he is out running around with women like Crystal while he ignores his own son. A tear slipped down my cheek. Leroy whispered, I never meant for you to find out like this. I looked at him. My voice was shaking, but steady enough. You never meant for me to find out at all. Lorraine dropped the last piece of paper onto our coffee table. A school photo. A boy with warm eyes. A boy who had Leroy's nose. My throat tightened. My chest ached. I whispered, does he know about me? Lorraine nodded. He knows you are his father's wife. He always asked why he could not meet you. He thinks he did something wrong. My hand flew to my mouth as more tears fell. Leroy stepped toward me, his voice trembling. Eudora, I swear, I was trying to protect you. I was going to tell you eventually. I promise. I just needed time. Time. After 14 years. Before I could say anything, my phone buzzed again. The same unknown number. One new message. Now you see the truth. But there is still more he is hiding. I stared at the screen, trembling. More. More than a secret child. More than a second apartment. More than cheating. I looked up at Leroy slowly. What else did you do? He opened his mouth. But before he could speak, the sound of tires screeched outside, and another car door slammed. Someone else had come. Someone who shouted his name so loudly it echoed across the walls. The voice that shouted Leroy's name outside was deep, rough, and familiar in a way that made my stomach flip. I knew that voice. I had heard it at family cookouts, at funerals, at holiday gatherings where folks pretended everything was fine when it really was not. It was his brother. Rufus Blythe. Leroy's older brother by 8 years. The one who always showed up with a loud laugh, a pocket full of excuses, and a reputation you never quite trusted. The one who could drink too much, promise too much, and disappear for months like dust on the wind. He was trouble wrapped in a nice smile. But I had not heard his voice in almost a year. I wiped my face and stood up slow. Lorraine stepped back. Leroy stiffened like someone had put ice down his spine. Another shout. This time closer. Leroy, open this door before I break it down. Lorraine whispered. You did not tell him I was coming, did you? Leroy shook his head. I did not tell anybody. The fear in his eyes told me that whoever sent those messages knew more about our lives than any outsider should. And somehow, Rufus showing up right after those messages felt too exact, too timed, too dangerous. The knock exploded against the door. I walked toward it, not because I felt brave, but because I needed to take control of something. Even if it was only a doorknob. I pulled it open. Rufus stood there. Tall. Heavy built. A denim shirt unbuttoned at the top. Sweat on his forehead like he had been driving fast. His eyes darted past me to Leroy. You're done messed up, he said. No greeting. No smile. Not even a flicker of apology. Leroy stepped forward. Rufus, what are you doing here? Rufus pushed inside. He smelled like gasoline and old leather. I came because I got a message. He pointed at Leroy. Someone said you were about to ruin everything. Lorraine crossed her arms. Good. Maybe someone needs to ruin everything so the truth can finally breathe. Rufus turned to her. And who are you? Lorraine did not flinch. The mother of his child. Rufus blinked, surprised, then let out a low whistle. Lord have mercy. This man really been juggling flames. My voice cut in, harder than I expected. Why are you here, Rufus? He looked at me for the first time since he walked in. His voice lowered. Eudora, I wish I came with good news. But this is bad. Real bad. I glanced at Leroy. He looked like he already knew what Rufus was going to say. Rufus wiped his forehead and walked toward the window, peeking out like he expected someone to drive up behind him. Rufus said, Leroy, you need to tell her before I do. Leroy shook his head. Not here. Not in front of everyone. Lorraine snapped. You have been saying that for months. Let this woman hear the truth. She deserves every piece of it. Rufus let out a heavy sigh. All right then. He turned to me. Eudora. It ain't just the cheating. It ain't just the other woman. And it ain't even just the boy. I swallowed. Every word felt like another stone pressing on my chest. Rufus continued, 3 months ago, Leroy came to me asking for help. Said he got into something he could not get out of. My knees felt weak again. I held on to the arm of the chair. What's something, I asked. Rufus scratched the back of his neck. Look. You know how Leroy been running those late-night shifts? How he always said it was overtime. I nodded. It wasn't overtime. It wasn't even legal work. My heart thudded in my throat. Rufus lowered his voice. He owed money. A lot of it. And not to a bank. To the kind of people who don't forget what you owe. Silence fell across the room. Lorraine covered her mouth. I felt my pulse in my temples. Owed money to who? Rufus rubbed his hands together like the words were hard to hold. A man named Carter. You might have seen him around town. Runs that auto shop by the tracks. But that shop ain't where his money comes from. Folks around here know what he really does. I whispered. Drugs. Rufus closed his eyes. And gambling. My breath caught. Leroy did not gamble. At least not the Leroy I thought I knew. I turned to him slowly. Leroy, is this true? Leroy lowered his head. I was only supposed to do one job. Just one. I needed money for something. Something from my past. I thought I could handle it. Rufus cut in. He thought he could outsmart the man. But Carter don't let nobody walk away after one job. When you touch his money once, you touch it forever. My stomach twisted. Leroy paced the room like a trapped animal. I was trying to protect you. That is why I worked nights. That is why I kept that apartment. I needed a place they would not trace back to you. Trace what back to me, I asked. Rufus spoke before he could answer. Leroy owes Carter more than $10,000. And Carter has been looking for him. Lorraine gasped. 10,000. My knees nearly gave out. I steadied myself by gripping the back of the sofa. Rufus continued. And last night Carter found out something. Something that made him furious. That is why I came here. Leroy, you did not answer your phone. Carter said he is coming today. Today. Lorraine took a step back like she wanted to run. I whispered, why would Carter come here? What does he want? Rufus hesitated. Eudora. Carter thinks Leroy stole something from him. Something worth more than money. I looked at Leroy. But he did not look at me. His hands were shaking. I whispered again, what did you take? He pressed his lips together. Tell me the truth, Leroy. Lorraine added, you owe this woman honesty before anything else. Finally Leroy spoke, his voice cracking. I did not steal anything. I swear. I was accused. But I did not do it. Rufus shook his head. That man does not care about the truth. He cares about getting his revenge. The room went cold. Then my phone buzzed again. Unknown number. This time the message was only 2 words. He is here. At that exact moment, a shadow moved across our front window. Then the sound of heavy footsteps echoed across the porch. The knock that followed was slow, measured, dangerous. And nothing in Leroy's face reassured me that we were going to be safe. The knock at the door was different this time. Not loud like Rufus. Not desperate like Lorraine. Not frantic like the unknown messages. This knock was slow, heavy, confident. Like the person on the other side already knew they had the upper hand. Leroy took a step backward. Lorraine clutched her purse. Rufus wiped his palms on his jeans. I stood frozen near the hallway, my heart pounding so hard it felt like it was trying to escape my chest. The knock came again. 3 slow hits, each one deeper than the last. Rufus whispered, "That is him. Carter." The man Leroy feared. The man who believed something had been stolen from him. The man who, according to Rufus, never forgave and never forgot. Leroy whispered to me without turning his head, "Eudora, go in the kitchen. Please." I did not move. I was tired of being pushed aside in my own house. Tired of secrets. Tired of lies. Tired of surprises swallowing my life whole. I said, "No. If he is here about you, I deserve to know why." Rufus stepped in front of the door, his chest rising and falling like he was preparing himself for a fight he knew he could not win. Leroy finally walked toward the door. His hands trembled as he reached for the knob. When he opened it, the entire house seemed to shrink around us. Carter stood on the porch. Tall, broad shoulders, muscles pressing through a black work shirt, dark skin, sharp jaw, a scar along his left eyebrow. His eyes were calm but cold, the kind of cold that tells you a person does not raise their voice when they are angry. They simply act. Behind him were 2 men. Leaner, younger, wearing plain clothes but standing like trained guards. Their eyes never blinked. Carter stepped inside without waiting for permission. He looked around the living room, taking in Lorraine, Rufus, and finally me. His stare lingered on me for a second longer than I expected. Then he turned toward Leroy. "We need to talk." Leroy swallowed hard. "Carter, please. Not here. Not with my wife present." Carter's eyebrows raised slightly. He glanced at me again. "Your wife deserves to hear it. You should have told her a long time ago." My heart pounded faster. Carter stepped closer. Calm. Dangerous. Controlled. "Let me make this simple," he said. "I am missing something very valuable. Something that belongs to me. Something you had access to." Leroy shook his head fast. "I swear I did not take anything from you. I only did the jobs you told me to do." Carter pressed his tongue against his cheek like he was holding back a laugh. "Jobs. That is the problem. You did the first one right. You did the second one sloppy. The third one, you thought you were slick. And the fourth one, well, that one is why I am here." I felt the air shift. Lorraine stepped backward, bumping into the coffee table. Rufus cursed under his breath. I whispered, "Leroy, what fourth job?" Leroy raised both hands in front of him. "I did not take it. I swear." Carter reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. He tossed it on the coffee table. It slid across the surface and landed near the envelope Lorraine brought. I walked closer. My hands shook as I unfolded it. Inside was a photograph. A bag. Not of money. Not of drugs. Not of anything I could understand at first. It looked like documents. Thick papers. Old. Stamped. Sealed. Under the photo was a typed description. Property deeds. Title transfers. Retirement account records. all tied to a single name. I looked up at Carter. What is this? Carter looked at me for the first time directly. Your husband was involved in a deal that had nothing to do with me at first. It involved a woman, a property, a large sum of money. Then it crossed paths with my business when certain papers went missing. My blood ran cold. What woman? I asked. Carter turned his gaze back to Leroy. You tell her. Leroy looked at me with a face full of shame. Eudora, the woman from the photo you found. She needed help. She wanted to move out of state with her child. She asked me to handle the paperwork. I used my job connections to help her. I thought it was innocent at first. I thought I was doing someone a favor. My throat tightened. What kind of paperwork? Leroy hesitated. Carter finished for him. The kind that lets someone disappear. Lorraine gasped. Rufus cursed again. My knees nearly buckled. Disappear how? I asked. Carter's voice dropped low. The woman was involved with someone who wanted her gone. She came to Leroy. Leroy came to me for connections. But somewhere along the way, the original documents disappeared. The ones she needed for her new identity. Those documents were sitting in a secured place I run. Carter leaned closer to Leroy. And they vanished the same week you stopped answering my calls and started paying for that apartment. I stared at Leroy. Leroy, tell me you did not take those papers. Leroy looked at the floor. I did not take them. But I know who did. Silence. A heavy silence so thick it pressed on my skin. Carter folded his arms. Then say the name. Leroy's lips trembled. It was not me. Then who? His voice cracked. Crystal. My mouth dropped open. Lorraine covered her face. Rufus muttered, Lord help us. Carter's jaw tightened. Crystal, he repeated slowly. The woman you were sneaking around with. The woman who came to your house today. The woman you told me not to worry about. Leroy nodded weakly. She stole the documents. She thought she could sell them. She used me to get close to them. I did not know what she was doing at first. And when I found out, she disappeared. Carter stepped forward until he was inches from Leroy's face. You knew she stole from me and you did not say a word. Leroy backed into the wall. I did not know where she went. She vanished. Carter stared at him for a long, terrifying moment. Then he turned to me. Your husband dragged you into something that could get people hurt. I did not come here for threats. I came for answers. You have 24 hours to bring me those documents. If not. He did not finish the sentence. He did not have to. He nodded to his men, then walked toward the door. But just before he stepped outside, he paused and looked back at me. You better ask your husband what else he has been hiding. You are in deeper than you think. Then he left. The door shut. The house felt too still, too quiet, too broken. I looked at Leroy. Tears were on my cheeks and I did not even feel them fall. What else, Leroy? What else have you done? He opened his mouth to speak. But before he could say a single word, the front window shattered behind us. Glass flew across the carpet. A brick landed in the middle of the living room with a note tied around it. And that note had my name on it. Glass exploded across the living room floor like a burst of angry stars. Lorraine screamed and covered her head. Rufus ducked. Leroy threw his arm around me as the brick tumbled across the carpet and rolled to a stop at my feet. A note was tied to it. A note with my name on it. I felt a chill move down my back. The kind of chill that makes your bones remember something your mind tries to forget. Slowly, I bent down and picked it up. My hands shook so hard the paper rattled. Rufus whispered, Don't open it, Eudora. Let me check it first. I shook my head. This one is mine. I untied the thin string and unfolded the note. The handwriting was rushed and sharp, like someone scribbled it while running. My eyes read the words once. Then again. Then a third time. I felt the room tilt. The note said, "He lied to you. The woman in the photo didn't disappear. She came to you first. Ask him what he did the night you were in the hospital. Ask him why she begged him for protection. Ask him why she never made it out alive." My throat closed. The room spun. Alive. I read the sentence again. She never made it out alive. I stumbled backward, gripping the sofa arm for balance. Lorraine rushed to me, trying to look at the note, but I held it close to my chest. I whispered, "She's dead." Rufus's face went pale. Lorraine covered her mouth. And Leroy. Leroy froze like someone had unplugged the life from his body. "No," he whispered. "That is not true. That is not true." But the way his eyes flickered told me something else. He knew something. Something he had never said. I stepped toward him. My voice was cracking but strong enough to slice through the air. "Leroy. Who is she? Why was she coming to me? Why would she need protection? And what happened the night I was in the hospital?" Lorraine caught the last question and turned to him sharply. "Hospital, what happened that night?" Rufus stared at him too. 3 pairs of eyes. All demanding. Leroy's back hit the wall. He looked at each of us, his breaths coming faster and rougher. Sweat gathered at his temples. "Eudora," he said softly, "you are thinking the wrong thing. That note is trying to turn you against me." My voice rose. "Answer me." He swallowed hard. "You remember that night you were admitted to the ER, the night you fainted in the backyard, you hit your head on the garden stones?" I remembered it clearly. A sharp pain. Darkness. Waking up to bright white ceiling lights and the smell of disinfectant. Leroy had told me I was only out for minutes. He said he found me and took me straight to the hospital. But the way he was shaking now, it told a different story. I took a step closer. "Leroy, were you with her that night?" His eyes widened. "Leroy, tell me the truth. Right now." The truth came out of him like a dam finally breaking. "I was supposed to meet her. She said she had to give me something important. Something she said could hurt people if it fell into the wrong hands. She told me she was scared. She begged me to help her. I only hid it from you because you were already stressed with your mama's situation and I cut him off." "Did you meet her?" He closed his eyes. "Yes." My heart twisted. But I pushed harder. "Where?" He hesitated. "The motel from the picture." Lorraine gasped. Rufus cursed under his breath. I stepped even closer. "Then what happened?" Leroy lowered his head. His throat bobbed as he swallowed. "She never showed up." A chill swept through me. I whispered, "Then where did she go?" Leroy looked away. "I do not know." But I did not believe him. Not anymore. Suddenly Lorraine spoke up. "Hold on. Are you two talking about the same woman?" "I think you're talking about the woman in that photo." Looked scared. Like she was being watched. Like she was. She paused. Her eyes widened. "Is this the same woman who went missing from the next county months ago? The one they never found?" My breath caught. Missing. Never found. The woman in the photo. The woman who needed protection. The woman who had asked Leroy for help. I whispered, "Leroy, did the police ever talk to you about her disappearance?" Silence. Heavy. Suffocating. Damning. Rufus stepped forward, anger rising in his voice. "Bro. Answer her." Leroy shook his head weakly. "They questioned me once. Just once. I told them I did not know anything. And they let me go." Lorraine stared at him like she was seeing him for the first time. "Did you tell them about the papers she took? Did you tell them they were tied to Carter? Did you tell them she was running from someone dangerous?" Leroy whispered, "No. If I had told them that, Carter would have come after me sooner. After all of us." I pressed my hand against my forehead. Everything felt like it was spinning out of control. My husband had a secret child, a second apartment, a dangerous debt, a missing woman. stolen documents. And now someone breaking windows to warn me. I looked down at the note again. Ask him what he did the night you were in the hospital. My voice shook, but I lifted my eyes to him again. Leroy. The night I fainted. The doctors said I had been unconscious longer than the time you told them. Where were you really? He opened his mouth. But before he could speak, another sound cut him off. The front door creaked slowly. Every head turned. Someone was standing there. Inside the doorway. Inside the broken glass and the fading daylight. A woman. Alive. Breathing. Shaking. But it was her. The woman from the photograph. Her clothes were dirty. Her hair tangled. A bruise darkened the side of her jaw. And when she lifted her eyes to me, she whispered one sentence that made the room fall silent. Eudora. He was supposed to protect me. But he left me to die. The woman stepped forward like each movement cost her something. Her knees trembled. Her eyes darted around the room as if she expected someone to jump from behind the furniture. Her voice was cracked and weak, but the words she spoke cut cleaner than any knife. Eudora. He was supposed to protect me. But he left me to die. Leroy staggered backward like she had slapped him. Lorraine covered her mouth. Rufus whispered under his breath, Lord have mercy. I stepped closer, slowly, watching her every move. This was the same woman from the photograph I found inside the shampoo bottle. The same woman Crystal accused Leroy of sneaking around with. The same woman who had disappeared. Seeing her alive should have brought relief. But the terror in her eyes told me that relief was the last emotion any of us were allowed to have. I took a careful breath. Honey, what is your name? She swallowed hard. Her voice was barely there. Marina. I let her come inside. She hesitated before stepping over the shattered glass, like the broken window reminded her of something she was trying to escape. As soon as she crossed the threshold, she flinched at the sight of Leroy. I turned to him. Leroy, what did you do to this woman? Leroy shook his head sharply. Nothing. I swear to you, Eudora, I never laid a hand on her. I tried to help her. Marina let out a shaky, bitter laugh. Help me, you left me alone in that motel room with people looking for me. You promised you would come back. You promised you would protect us. Us. A word that hit the air like thunder. Lorraine stepped forward. Us, who is us? Marina's shoulders sagged. My son. Rufus raised both hands. Another child. Marina looked up slowly. No. Not Leroy's. My own son. The one the man I was running from wanted to take. My breath caught. This was deeper than an affair. Deeper than lies, money, or motel rooms. This woman had been running for her life. I moved closer to her. Tell me everything. From the beginning. Please. She nodded, wiped her face, and took a long, trembling breath. I met Leroy years ago at the bus stop. He was kind to me when I had nothing. My son's father was dangerous. The kind of man who could make people disappear. I wanted out. I wanted safety. Leroy helped me find a lawyer. Helped me hide my identity. Helped me get the documents I needed. But the people after me, they found me at that motel. Lorraine leaned in. And what does Carter have to do with this? Marina's eyes filled with fear. Carter ran the hiding network. He was supposed to protect me. But once he realized my son's father had money, he wanted me to pay him instead. When I could not, he threatened to send me back to the man I was running from. Everything inside me froze. Leroy stepped forward, voice cracking. I did not know Carter was threatening you. I only knew he wanted those documents. I swear, Marina, I thought you were safe. Marina glared at him. Safe, I was hiding in closets with my son, hearing footsteps outside the door. I called you that night, begging you to come. You told me you would be right there. I waited for you for hours. My chest tightened. That was the same night I was taken to the hospital. The same night Leroy's story had never made sense. I whispered, "And then what happened?" Marina took another shaky breath. "Someone broke into the motel room. I heard them jiggling the door. I grabbed my son and climbed out the back window. We ran through the alleys until a woman picked us up and drove us out of town. A woman I had never met. But she said someone sent her." Rufus frowned. "Someone who?" Marina shook her head. "She never told me. But she gave me one message. One thing she said Leroy needed to hear. That he needed to make right what he broke." I swallowed. My pulse thudded. I asked, "Why did you come here today?" She touched the bruise on her cheek. "Because your husband's enemies found me again. And this time, they said they were not just coming for me. They said they were coming for whoever Leroy loved most." My heart stopped. Loved most. Slowly, everyone in the room turned toward me. A cold shiver ran down my spine. Lorraine whispered, "That is why the notes were coming to you. Someone was trying to warn you and force this all into the open." Marina nodded. "You were in danger, Eudora. You still are." I sank into the nearest chair as the weight of her words crashed over me. I had been living in a house full of secrets, sleeping beside a man drowning in lies. And now, danger was sitting right on our doorstep. Leroy finally spoke, voice cracking. "Eudora, please. I know I failed her. I know I failed you. But I never wanted you to get hurt. I never wanted any of this." I lifted my head slowly. "Then answer this, Leroy. Where is her son now?" Marina's breath hitched. Everyone looked at her. She whispered, "He is missing." The room erupted. Lorraine gasped loudly. Rufus cursed. Leroy grabbed the edge of the table to stay upright. I finally managed to speak. "Missing since when?" Marina looked into my eyes, exhausted and terrified. "Since this morning. And the only thing left in his bed was a note with your name on it." The room spun. My stomach turned. My legs weakened. "Why my name?" I asked in a whisper. Marina stepped closer and held out a small folded paper. "Because the man who took him said you were the key to everything Leroy owes." She placed the paper in my trembling hand. I unfolded it. One sentence. "Bring me the woman." Before I could react, the lights flickered. Then everything went dark. The moment the lights went out, the house dropped into a deep, suffocating darkness. Lorraine screamed. Marina grabbed my arm. Rufus cursed and fumbled for his phone. Leroy shouted for everyone to stay still. But I was not still. Not anymore. Something inside me had shifted. A woman can only be pushed so far before she stops shaking and starts standing. I took a slow breath. Listened. Waited. Somewhere outside, gravel crunched under footsteps. Not walking. Coming straight toward us. Rufus whispered, "They cut the power. They are here." Leroy stumbled toward the window, trying to see through the darkness. I could hear his breathing. Fast. Panicked. He said, "We have to hide Eudora. Now." But I stepped away from him. Hide? No. For years, I had hidden my hurt, my questions, my disappointments. I had hidden behind chores, behind cooking, behind old habits, behind a marriage that felt more like a sinking boat than a partnership. But not tonight. Tonight, I was done hiding. The sound of a car door shutting snapped the room back to life. I reached for my phone, using the faint glow to guide me. Lorraine clutched Marina tightly. Rufus moved toward the back door. But I stayed still in the center of the room. A voice called out from the yard. Deep. Cold. Unfamiliar. "Bring me the woman, or I will torch this entire house." Marina gripped my arm tighter. "He means you, Eudora. He wants you, not because of what Leroy did, but because of what you know." I swallowed hard. What I knew. I hardly understood it myself. Leroy pulled me into the hallway, his hands shaking. Eudora, listen to me. I know I caused this. I know I ruined everything. But let me fix it. I will not let them take you. His voice cracked like a man who knew he could not keep that promise. And that is when it hit me. He could not protect me. He was the reason danger was at my door. He had built a web of lies so wide it caught innocent lives in it. He had created this storm. But I did not have to stand in it. I stepped back from him. Move, Leroy. He blinked, stunned. Move, I said again. Slowly, he stepped aside. I walked into the living room, lit only by the faint glow from outside. I could see a shadow standing beyond the broken window. A man with broad shoulders. A man holding something in his hand. A lighter. Marina whispered behind me, "That's not Carter. That's someone else. Someone worse." My chest tightened. If not Carter, then who? I raised my voice. "Who are you? What do you want?" The shadow stepped forward until the porch light caught his face. It wasn't Carter. It wasn't one of his men. It wasn't a stranger. It was a name I hadn't heard yet. But I recognized the eyes. Brown. Sharp. Angry. The same eyes. From the school photo Lorraine dropped earlier. The boy's father. Marina let out a sob behind me. He stepped closer, voice trembling with rage. "You think you can hide my son from me? You think you can take him away and not pay for it? All of this, all of it, is because of her." He pointed straight at Marina. But his eyes locked onto me. I whispered, "Your son is missing. Someone took him." His face twisted. "I know." The rage in his eyes changed. Became something darker. "I told them to take him." Every breath in my lungs froze. Marina screamed. Leroy rushed forward, but Rufus grabbed him by the shoulders. I stared at the man on the porch. Why would you do that to your own child?" He lifted the lighter. "Because the boy was leverage. And now you are too. Bring me the documents. Or he disappears forever." The world pulsed in and out, as if my heartbeat were controlling the air. Marina collapsed to her knees. "No, no, please. He is just a child." The man ignored her. He flicked the lighter. A small flame danced between us. I stepped forward until Leroy tried to pull me back. I shook him off. "If it is me you want, take me. But do not harm that boy." He hesitated, surprised by the firmness in my voice. Then the sound of sirens pierced the night. Loud. Close. Dozens of them. Red and blue lights flashed across the broken window. Cars skidded to a stop. Doors slammed. Then, freeze, hands in the air. It was the sheriff's voice. A voice I had heard at community meetings. A voice I trusted. The boy's father tried to run. But deputies tackled him in seconds, pressing him face down into the dirt. Marina let out a sob of pure relief. Leroy collapsed against the wall. Rufus sank into a chair. Lorraine held her chest like her heart was trying to escape. The sheriff stepped inside. "Mrs. Blythe, are you all right?" I nodded slowly. He continued. "We received an anonymous call 10 minutes ago. Someone told us everything. The documents. The motel. Carter. The missing boy. And the threat against your life. Anonymous. Someone who had been sending warnings. Someone who wanted the truth exposed." I reached for my phone. A new message came in at that exact moment. One sentence. "You're safe now. No name. No number. Nothing else." But whoever it was, they had saved all of us tonight. The sheriff turned to Marina. "We found your son. He's safe. We have him in the patrol car." Marina broke down in tears. I helped her to her feet. A mother reunited with her child. A criminal arrested. And a truth finally dragged into the light. When the officers led the boy's father away, the sheriff looked at Leroy. "And you, sir? We need to talk downtown." Leroy did not argue. He simply nodded, defeated. As they led him out, he turned to me and whispered, Eudora, I never deserved you. I am sorry. For everything. I did not respond. Not because I was angry, but because sometimes silence is the last piece of dignity a woman has to give. When the lights were restored and the house was finally quiet, Marina hugged me tightly. Thank you, she whispered. You saved us both. But I shook my head. No. I just finally saved myself. Later that night, after everyone was gone and the house was empty, I made some tea and sat at the kitchen table. My life had changed forever. But not in the way heartbreak usually changes you. I felt stronger, calmer, wiser. Some storms come to destroy you, but some come to clear your path. This storm did both. I looked into the camera of my mind, the way I always do when I know someone out there needs to hear the truth. If you made it this far, thank you. Please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss a story like this one. Tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Your support keeps this community strong. And remember, strength doesn't always come from loud voices. Sometimes it comes from quiet women who finally choose themselves.